welcome to a video about how to generate missions in Welcome Aboard Captain. Today we're going to be using the procedural mission generator. This generator is version 1 and we've since developed version 2, but this is the one that I have printed out, so it's the one we're going to be using today. It's similar to version 2, so it ought to give you an idea of how it progresses, but there are a couple of minor differences. I've got my mission generator information here. I've got some captain's log sheets. I've got a crew roster and the ship roster ready to go, and some handy reference sheets I've printed out. And I've got my dice and paper and pencil. So let's get going. So the first thing you do when you generate a mission is you have to generate what the mission actually is with the mission context. So we'll roll on the table to see what kind of mission we're going to have. 8. Looks like we have a military action. So let's go answer some questions about this military action that we've been called to. A military threat or incursion has developed and we are called to respond. What is the threat? It's religious extremists. What is needed? We need to rescue from enemy territory. And where is the action? It's at an outpost colony. So we've been called to rescue some people from enemy territory at an outpost colony from religious extremists. Sounds good. Okay, so that's the mission. So I'm going to write that down in my log. I'm on the AWF Nother. That's the name of my ship. And we need to rescue some hostages from extremists on a remote colony. Now we can just imagine details for that as we go, or if we're stumped or want to be surprised, we can go to the various threat generators in the back of the book, or plot generators, or whatever. So let's see what the religious extremists are trying to do by capturing these hostages, and roll on an objectives table. So what are they trying to achieve? They are trying to they're trying to update or repair something. So maybe their ship has crashed and they took hostages in demand of getting their ship repaired so they can escape. That sounds like a good setup. Okay, so that's the situation. We could roll for more detail, but this is more about how to generate it. So the next thing we do is we play through a series of objectives. And objectives start with your command decision as the captain of the ship. And most of the time you're going to start with something easy like, let's travel there. So we're going to travel to the colony where the hostages have been taken. So that's going to be our first command decision. Take us there, Mr. Velasquez. Go to colony. And what that does is it generates a task of strength 1. Very simple, very easy, but then we're going to make it a little tougher. So the drop space journey is a task 1. There's a strength 1 task that we need to do. Now normally we would just fly there and be done, but the way things get interesting is we roll for complications. We roll a d6, add 1, and that's how many complications we add. I rolled a 3, so there's going to be 4 complications. So let's track that on this die. Okay, So then we roll on the table of complications. I'm going to use the new table. Okay, so there's 12. So here's complication number 1. What is it? It's a 1, which means this is a hard task. And we add 1d4 plus 1 to an existing task's strength. So let's do that. 4. So I add 5 to this strength. So for some reason, this is a long, harrowing journey. Maybe it's very far away and we have to really push ourselves to get there in time. Okay, so that's the first task, or the first complication. We have 3 more to go. 2. It's an involved task. So we need to add 2 strength 1 tasks, or plus 2 strength to 2 tasks. We only have 1, so we have to do the first one. So we need to add 2 strength 1 tasks. So 1 and 1. So let's imagine that we can have our drop space journey there, but once we get into the system, we need to scan the surface and find out where the extremists are, and then develop a plan. So scan surface to get information about the extremists, and then we need to develop a plan. Okay, that's 2 of our complications. We have 2 left to add. 8. All right, it's unclear. When one of the tasks is completed, we roll to see whether or not we actually find the right thing. So I can choose any of the tasks. Let's see, I think what I would say is maybe when we scan the surface, maybe we don't find them right away, and maybe it's unclear where they are. So I'm going to make this an unclear task. So after we complete that task, we're going to have to roll. And if we roll poorly, we're going to have to come up with another strategy for completing that task and do it again. Okay, so we only have 1 more complication left to do. And it's 3. It's a harrowing task. And then we add a delta time penalty and plus 2 strength to a task. So it makes sense that the surface scanning is going to be that task. And then there's a delta T penalty, which means every time period that passes, we're going to incur a penalty. And that's the first objective. It started out easy, but then it got a little complicated. So let's play through this. The first thing that we need to do is go on our drop space journey. So that would likely be our pilot. He's got a hotshot pilot, and we've got an exponential FTL drive on our ship. So that'll be a D10 for his hotshot pilot capability, and a D6 for our exponential FTL drive. And we'll say that those are being opposed by, we need to get there in time. And let's see, oh, it could just be drop space turbulence. Again, if you are stumped for things to threaten that, there are threat generators that we could use for piloting by drop space, so we could roll on that if we wanted. But I came up with some that I like. So let's roll the dice and see what happens. 2, 2, 2, and 3. So right now, the drop space turbulence is going to get the better of us, and we're not going to get there in time. But Mr. Velasquez is an excellent pilot, so he's going to spend a point of stamina to re-roll one of these. I'm going to re-roll this one. 4. Okay, now we're beating it by 1. Let's go ahead and take that. So now this has gone down to 5, and we've spent 1 turn, or 1 action. And right now I'm playing at the alert level of Amber, which is the default. So I get 4 actions before time passes. So I have 3 more actions. So let's just keep flying. 10, 4, 6, and 5. I have 4 going for me. Let's go ahead and take that. Get that down to a 1. This time his hotshot flying gets him through drop space pretty easily. 7, 3, 3, 7. He's going to spend another point of stamina. This is a long, harrowing flight. And there we go. Now his hotshot pilot is beating everything. So we finished this journey. And we're going to say that the journey is one situation, and the scanning surface and developing a plan is another situation. So that situation is done. So I can add 10 veteran points. So I did have 310, so now I have 320. All right, let's go to the second situation. Okay, we've arrived at the planet and at the colony, and then we need to scan the colony to see if we can find out what the situation is. So let's see, who would do that? That would probably be our science officer. She's going to use her sensor tech specialist. That's a D8. And let's see, and our ship has high resolution sensors as a D10. So she's going to use those. And we'll say that there might be interference and they might be actively hiding. 2, 7, so the sensors are doing very well, but there's a lot of interference. So let's see if Seshadri can calibrate her sensors to cut through the interference by spending a point of stamina. I'll re-roll that. 2. Great. Now we have 7 minus 2, which is 5. So now she completes the scan. But it's an unclear situation, so we need to roll to see if it actually resolves. And it will resolve on a 4 through 6. 5. So it did resolve. She was able to get a good view of what's going on down on the surface. So now, armed with this information, we need to develop a plan. How are we going to go down and rescue those hostages? Well, our security and operations officer, Alanafe, is the person to do that with. And he's got operational expertise, which is a D10. And let's see, he's organized. So let's give him the D6. He's ready to go. And let's see, what would the threats to that be? That would be they're well dug in, or they're well armed. Okay. No, they're well dug in and they have a lot of hostages that they need to keep safe. Okay, 5, 3, 1, and 7. The hostages needing to be kept safe is currently stymieing their ability to develop an effective plan. But Alanafe is shrewd and clever, so he's going to use a point of stamina to re-roll the 7 to a 6. Didn't help us. Well, I'm going to spend his point of crew. He's got a point of crew assigned to him. He's got an operations staff. I'm going to move that crew to general quarters and task them with coming up with a proposal. That means I get to reroll one of these dice. 6. not surprisingly, they can't come up with something better than Alanafe came up with. Well, let's spend another point of stamina. He spends a tense several minutes just looking over the schematics that Seshadri gave him. 6. That is not good. Okay, he's going to take a point of resolve because 6 minus 5 is 1. So he loses some resolve. He's a little bit taken aback by this. He can't figure things out. I think it's time for our captain to step in. He goes to the captain presenting his problems, and she is a brilliant tactician, which is a D10. And let's see, maybe they should work together. So we're going to have Alanafe and Lau work together. So she's going to use her tactician. He's going to use his operational expertise. This takes 2 actions because they both take their action, but it allows us to use dice from both of them, which gives us 2 D10s, and it generates a free point of stamina that we can use for a reroll. And if we don't use it, one of them can take it. So, same problems. Captain Lau and Alanafe are working on a plan together. Let's see how they do. Ah, that's more like it. 9, 8, 8, 4. So they're heavily armed, and they've got hostages, but working together, they come up with a plan that is just might make it. We only got 1, but we only need 1. So they've finished that. Okay, so we've completed that objective. We've gone to the planet, we've figured out a plan, and now we need to execute the plan. So, we make another command decision. This time, the command decision, you know, we have a choice here. We have our plan to rush in and attack the extremists and get the hostages out. We could do that trying to get surprise. Or we could try to contact them and talk our way through it so that there's no violence and hopefully get the hostages released without having to resort to that. So this is a command decision that you have to make, and what should we do? And I think Captain Lau, she's empathetic and she's a skilled diplomat, so I think she would try to talk them down first. So let's say that's what we're going to do next. So we'll try to talk them down. She says,
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Siri wants to know what I'm doing. Okay, so we're going to try and talk them down. We tell our communications lead, Burke, to open a command or open a channel to speak with the extremists. So open a channel. And that'll be our first task, to open a channel to talk to them. And that's a Strength 1 task. Now we see how many complications we have. Hopefully we'll roll a 1. We roll a 2. So there's going to be 3 complications to talking with these extremists. So let's go back to our table of complications. The first complication is that it's fruitful if we complete a task. We gain a benefit. All right, so what's the benefit? If we manage to talk to them, we will be able to allow veteran point spends when complete. So that'll allow us to rally ourselves or add to our determination to get the job done after we talk to them. That might galvanize us to get things done. Okay, so that was one of the complications. That was a good one. What's another complication? We already did a fruitful one. Let's do a different one. 2 11s, wow. 8. This one's unclear. Okay, that makes sense because it's not clear what we would need to say to these extremists to get them to budge. Okay? And we have one more complication left. And it's a 12, surprising. We choose a new measure in the mission context rubric and add a strength 1 task. So there's another situation with a strength 1 task, and it's surprising. Now, that's how plot twists happen. You can, if you want to, roll for the nature of the surprising twist now, but what I like to do is just note that there's a surprising twist at the end of this objective and then discover it as I go. So let's go ahead and play through this. So first we open a channel and we talk to them. So I tell Burke to open a channel and ask them to surrender. So let's see, she's a communications tech expert. So that'll be a D10. And she's cool-headed. She has no problem talking to extremists and people threatening her. She can keep her cool. So that'll be that. The two things that are going to complicate this situation is maybe they're hostile and maybe they're scared. So let's see what happens. Okay, she knows what she's doing. She comes out on top of that. So she calls them and tells them, okay, we are here. You need to stand down and let go of the hostages or else we're going to be forced to take action. And that works, but it's unclear what the outcome is. So let's see. 2. That didn't work. So now we have to take another tack. We have to come up with another strategy for talking to them. Well, now's the time for the captain to step in. The communications officer has said what she wants to say, and they're not responding. So now maybe it's time for the captain to come online and be more persuasive. So we'll imagine that she comes on and reinforces what the communications officer has said. Now she is a skilled diplomat, which is a D8. So we've got a D8. And she is a tactician. That's not really empathetic. Yeah. She can put herself in other people's shoes, so that ought to help with her talking to them. Maybe she can strike a more good cop tone after the communications officer had a bad cop tone. 4, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, she does it. So by speaking to them a little more, a little less aggressively, she's able to defuse the situation and get them talking. So now we have a dialogue going with the extremists. All right, so we've completed that. And now we get to the surprising task. So when this comes through, what we do is we roll a new mission objective. It doesn't replace the current mission, but it adds new twists and new things that we have to do. So let's go back to the mission context and roll a new one. Now you can, if you want to, keep the current mission context. You could stay with military action and just reroll these if you want, or you can just roll a whole new one. So let's roll a whole new one just to see what happens. Let's see, a 4. Engineering support. So somehow our mission has now involves some engineering support type task. What type of support is needed? Ship construction. This kind of plays in with what we were talking about earlier. Their ship crashed and now they need something fixed. So that's what they're asking us to do, is maybe fix them a ship to get off the planet. Who is needed from us to get this done? They need our ship's technology to get this done. Like, let's see, what kind of ship technology would they need? Our special ship technologies, maybe it's our hydrogen crucible. Maybe their reactor's gone dark and it needs to be jump-started. So we'll do that. They need us to jumpstart their ship's reactor so they can get off the planet. And that's why they took the hostages. How dangerous is the engineering task that needs to be performed? It's perilous if we take too long. Okay. Why does it need to be done? Oops. It's part of a negotiated assistance. Yeah, we're negotiating this. And how much time do we have? We cannot stay over long. So their patience is going to wear thin if we take too long getting their reactor jump-started. But the captain has negotiated with the extremists. They will release the hostages if we will restart the reactor on their ship, which has gone dark. Okay. And we have a task 1 task to do that, so let's talk them into allowing us to do that. Into releasing one of the hostages as a good faith measure in exchange for jump-starting their reactor. And so that would definitely be the captain, because she's already got the communications line open with them. She's empathetic and a skilled diplomat, so she's got 2 D8s. And they're still hostile and scared. 5, 2, 5, 4. Okay, so right now, her skilled diplomacy is matching their fear. So she needs to talk them down a little bit. So she's going to spend a point of stamina to reroll this. Talking down their fear, their hostility. Ooh, she made things worse. We're tired of you Alliance people always telling us what to do. She spends another point of stamina. She keeps talking to them. She doesn't hang up. There we go. So finally she talks them down. 5 to 3, that's 2. We only need 1. So eventually they agree to release a hostage. So the next thing we would do is make another command decision. Probably what we would do is we would order our engineer and maybe our operations person to go in and perform the needed setup, technical setup to jumpstart the reactor. That would be the next command decision. And we would roll for more complications and see what happens and play through them. And you keep doing that until you think that maybe you're in a place where you can make progress towards the mission goal. When that happens, you roll on the objective outcome. So let's pretend that we've played through a couple of objectives and we've gotten to a point where we think that we might be able to get the hostages out, and we need to see whether they release them or not. Then we would roll on this. It's a d6, a 2. On a 4 through 6, you advance towards the mission goal and there's no effect. But in this case, there's a 2. There would be a setback. It would undo a command decision's progress. And so probably what that would mean is that they double cross us and don't release the prisoners, and we'd have to move to a more adversarial situation to get them back. And the way this works is you keep rolling on these every time you think you might be able to get close to making progress on your mission. And if there's mission upheavals, setbacks, and escalations, and once you generate one of those, you can't get another one. So in the future, if we roll more setbacks, we can ignore them and keep re-rolling. And so eventually you complete the mission. And then when you're done, suppose that happened. We ended up having to chase them out into space and use more military tactics to rescue the prisoners, but we've finally gotten the prisoners. We rolled an advance on this, and we've saved everybody, and the mission is complete. Then what we do is we just go through the different objectives that we've done and see whether they count towards our lodestar objectives, which are to explore, to understand, and to unite. For each one of those that we successfully do, we gain a point for that. Otherwise, we earn 20 veteran points. And then the mission is over. And then you can move on to the next mission and roll a new one. So that's an overview of how missions work, procedural missions work in Welcome Aboard Captain. Thank you for watching. I'll be putting up information on how you can go get the rules for the game. There's also a starter adventure that you can play through that will teach you a lot of these rules as you play the game in a choose your own adventure style. And that's been released and it's free, and you can try out some more of this stuff on your own using that document. Thanks for watching, and may Earth always guide you home.